Why, hello.
Oh, hi.
Welcome back.
We're back.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about characters?
Yeah, let's talk about the characters we met and got to know better in this section. And this time I'm going to do the organization a little differently. I'm going to start with the leads and then go sort of like group by group.
Oh, switching it up. Not doing it in the order they're introduced, but doing it in the order of the groups of people that exist.
So we're going to start from the top, and the top, of course, is Mr. Kvothe. This section for Kvothe was the most triumphant we've seen. This was Kvothe overcoming difficulties all the way throughout. He advances in the Arcanum rapidly, more rapidly than anybody else because he's a fucking prodigy. He recapitulates his heroic feat from chapter 19 and plays the pure music of lesser strings, which earns him his talent pipes. His financial woes come to an end with the growth of his musical acclaim, his prowess at artificery, and his access to credit from Devi. And he makes Ambrose look like the jackass that Jackass is over and over and over again. And of course, he saves Fela from the fire fog and gets the girl, sort of. Not Fela. And speaking of girls, a huge theme in this section was Kvothe's naivete and how much that affects how he interacts with the world.
Can I mention a development that I saw in Old Kvothe during this? I feel like the flair of his storytelling is growing. Like, I feel like there's
becoming more performative?
Yeah, it's in the chapters, not in the interludes, but in the chapters themselves, he'll be like, there she is, waiting in the wings, or like telling a character they're like a chorus. Like, he, as a narrator, is stepping in a little bit more as Old Kvothe to give you perspective.
I also caught a bit of what feels like Kvothe putting his own voice in other characters. Or coloring the story. This section felt embellished in a couple of ways. What we get right here in terms of Kvothe's naivete is his utter blindness, his complete obliviousness to the intensely sexual flirtation that he gets from Devi, the flirtation that we have referred to us, but we don't actually see with Maria the harpist. And there's a couple of unnamed women that are referred to as flirting with him by Will and Sim. And then Denna, when he first re-encounters her in the Aeolian, their first encounter, her flirtation is very adult and not explicit, but unsubtle, sexualized. She's flirting in a sexualized adult manner, and Kvothe just absolutely misses it. Not a hint. He knows she's flirting with him, but the flavor of it is completely lost based on his responses. He de-eroticizes every bit of banter they have. And then the other big instance we have of Kvothe's naivete is when he makes his bullseye lantern. He is street smart from his time in Tarbine, but Kvothe is so ignorant of the nature of criminality that he reinvents a crime tool just to show how cool he is. He protests his ignorance and his innocence to Kilvin, and it's completely believable. There's this bizarre side to Kvothe where he is extremely cunning and devious and can think strategically, but is utterly guileless to the world as it presents itself to him.
Some people have real problems with social stuff. That's real. That's real D-Day right there.
But I also think it's just another reminder that Kvothe is a very young character from a very socially insular scene with almost no experience in the mundane world as the denizens of this world know it. Even before he was a weirdo genius wizard, he was a weirdo genius gypsy theater kid followed by a beaten street kid for several years. Kvothe's knowledge of the world of urban life, the world of court manners, of adult interaction is extraordinarily truncated. And it's really kind of highlighted in this section. And the other thing that I noted about Kvothe in this section is that he has rediscovered some very basic pedagogy in teaching himself the alphabet of Sigildry by memorizing it to a song.
Can I just stop you for a minute
Yeah.
and be like, so one of the things that I see on the Reddit of King Killer Chronicle
A shout out to our King Killer Chronicle.
is all about how Sigildry is in the names of characters themselves. Mm-hmm. Like there's a Sigildry alphabet that means things that creates character names, which I really enjoy. As a storyteller, you're like, all right, names mean things, and the roots of names mean things, and the languages mean things.
Oh, son of a bitch. Are we going to have to go back through and do a Sigildry analysis of all the character names? And by we, I mean me.
Maybe.
I feel like you just need to find that one Aspie guy and just like ask him if it's okay to steal his content. I'm sorry, but you know if you've done this.
We can ask that person on the show.
So we've all learned information like this. Do you guys have any things you remember from school that you learned via songs?
Okay, so this is the thing. My mom was a preschool teacher, so she sang everything. Aww. So I've put most of that out of my head because like the junk drawer of the songs that my mom put in my head are like car, CAR. And then she would just like rhyme some nonsense after that, like had a friend and her name was Barb. And you'd be like, what? And she's like, a car's coming. It was like, okay, well, you have to be more direct. Not a lesson, Mom. Who the fuck is Barb?
The high school German teacher had us memorize one of the sets of prepositions. Aus, außer, bei, mit, nach, seit, von, zu. That in there forever. I don't remember what case it takes. But I remember that all of those prepositions take a specific case.
Good job, Quoth, for figuring out a way to earworm yourself into knowing basic. What do we decide this is? Chemistry, physics?
I actually
linguistic chemistry.
I know one musical mnemonic that both of you have deep in your heart. So deep you don't even recognize that it's there.
Everybody's doing a brand new dance now.
Come on, baby, do the locomotion. See, we all know how to do that dance.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chugga motion like a railroad train. I was actually referring to the alphabet song, but.
Oh.
A, B, C.
I still have to go through the alphabet song to know what alphabetical order is.
Yeah, LMNOP.
But
LMNOP.
Elemino.
LMNOP.
So let us move on to our other lead. I don't really have anything to say about Chronicler because you're probably not going to get very much about Chronicler through this whole series. He's kind of a cipher. But Bast, we found out a little bit more about Bast. It's not really a surprise, but Bast wants to hear about the ladies. We knew that about Bast. Bast is the thirsty one. We learned about...
How big are their ears, Rashi?
We learned that Bast isn't afraid of much, but he is afraid of...
Corns.
Bunions. He's afraid of bunions. He's afraid of a quiet Kvothe. Quiet Kvothe is...
He's afraid of silence and of falling.
And of falling.
They made that kind of clear. He's also afraid of falling.
Yes. But mostly just quiet Kvothe.
Yeah.
And my assumption with this is that this is about Kvothe being mortal, whatever that means in this world. I don't know if Bast being not immortal means that he's unkillable. If he lives a long time, doesn't die a natural death, we don't know this
I imagine he's more of a David
sort of
Bowie.
stuff.
Like he's mortal as far as
Dead
we can,
already?
Well, sure, as far as we can see, but
Why are you gonna
like
make it sad,
David
man?
Bowie continues on, man. Like he and Prince are dancing together somewhere right now.
What I took away from this is that when you've got a bond between a mortal and a bast, you've got a novel situation for that bast, which is that you have a friend who is going to go away. Mm-hmm. And I think that terrifies Bast, because that's not a loss that a not mortal thing is prepared for.
Yeah, it's something they talk about like to no end in this terrible Netflix movie called The Old Guard. The Old Guard only available on Netflix. No matter how bad your quar is going, don't watch The Old Guard. Wow. Unless you have nothing else to watch but Project Power, in which case do watch The Old Guard.
We've had a bad couple of days of movies, folks.
We ran out of TV shows, Beth.
I know, obviously.
Anyway, let's move on to the Masters.
Fair.
Yeah.
We only really get a good look at 3 Masters this time. And here's a question. Are all of these Masters just reflections of bits of Quoth's personality?
I felt like they were all projections of hot teachers that I had. Like, personally, that seems like what they are to me.
I only had 2 hot teachers,
Yeah.
and they were both in the arts, and that was all right.
I mean, my hot teachers were also in the arts. It's just they were in, like, more practical arts or in more, like, harm each other arts. You know, like battling and
Like
with magic.
bondage arts.
Yes.
I had no hot teachers.
You didn't know how. You didn't go to college, really.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about college. Okay, I've had 3.
Oh, God,
enough
no.
classes.
High school. Jesus Christ, I wasn't online that way.
I had one
Wait,
teacher
what?
who was
Online? What's going on with your hot online teachers?
I would just like to say that both of these hot teachers play a really sweet daddy role to Quoth in these scenes that we see them in. Like, both of them get to be masculine and understanding and even be like, hey, I know other people don't know this, but we know this, and I accept you. But I'm still a little, like, stern about it all.
Yeah,
daddy.
well, being understanding is a masculine trait because women are chaos, Beth. Haven't you been on the Reddit?
I'm going to kill you.
Look, all I know about the purple pill, I've heard through you. So you can't kill me with the information that you gave me, which I'm using to kill you, Beth. Chaos woman.
Yikes. That is not one of the professors we're going to be talking about today. There is no
There is no woman professor.
Yeah, there are no female professors.
There
We
are no
don't
female
have
professors.
those.
Yep.
Not this time.
Just like Jordan Peterson.
That's where I was going.
Let's go to Kilvin.
Yes, please.
So my ongoing thesis are the Caeldish Scottish.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
My argument in
Or
favor
they're
of my
Yanks.
thesis,
They could be Yanks.
Kilvin knows Quoth's lab debt off the dome without blinking. The Caeldish are Scottish.
Are you
I don't
saying
think
the
that's a
Scottish
thing.
are like weird and like money oriented?
Weirdly cheap?
Yeah.
Oh, that is an extremely broad
That is an
stereotype.
extremely broad stereotype that only Rex has. Moving on. Rex is just always walking through the world just like cheap fucking Scot.
I get to have a bit cut just like he does.
We all get to have bits cut.
Yeah. Like most of this gets cut.
Yes.
No, yes, there is a broad stereotype. It's I guess isolated probably to the English and maybe the Irish, but the Scottish are extremely cheap.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I've read a lot of Garth Ennis and he's never touched on that.
He's Scottish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Jewish and I'm always talking about how people think we're cheap.
I feel like the fact that he describes Kelvin as blustering is closer to Scottish than cheap.
Listen, after we're done here, I'm going to show you all a Monty Python sketch. We'll put an end to this. Let me continue.
All right, fair enough.
Also remember.
I'm talking about the Scots, and I'm talking about our man Aaron Pete. Hi, Aaron.
Oh no, we got to put this in the extras.
Talking about Kilvin.
No, I'm going to put it right here
Yeah.
because he brings up the point. I
Holy
wanted to
shit!
address it.
Do you guys? We have a listener who
yes.
wrote us and told us their own fucking opinion about this.
This is how we do engagement by surprise.
Yeah, I'm surprised. What the fuck is going on?
I'm talking about our listener, Aaron Pete, who wrote in and mentioned that Patrick Rothfuss, in describing the Kalish as dark-skinned, once mentioned that if there were a movie, they would be cast by people of color. And I want to point out that Scottishness is not a skin color. It's an accent. And therefore, the Kalish remains Scottish.
Oh wow! So okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Scottish is an accent.
Yeah.
I could see them as Scottish people of color.
Yes, of course.
The Moors rolled through Scotland too, right?
I was told distinctly by my very white parents that there are Black Irish.
The Black Irish just means you have a Norse last name.
No, Black
I thought
Irish
that meant
means
your hair
there
was black.
Black Irish means that there was a Spaniard somewhere deep in your history.
A Spaniard?
Yeah.
We'll actually talk about one more thing from Aaron's email later in our spoilery section.
I would like to say that I really enjoy the idea of accents not being attached to skin tone. And I'm pretty attached to it being a Scottish accent. I'm super happy to change skin tone in my head. In fact, I'm not great at the skin tone in the first place.
Listen, I have seen lots of incredible actors of color play Macbeth. I've seen a couple incredible actors of color play Macbeth. I know that. Lots of actors of color
You
play
can
Macbeth.
call them Othellos. Yeah, that's a fucking segue, guys. Take
Yeah.
advantage
Thank you,
of it.
Adam Pete. Is Adam?
Aaron.
Aaron.
Aeolian.
Thank you, Aaron Pete. We apologize for not handling your content great.
But we'll take another stab at it at the end of the show.
Yes.
Listen all the way through.
Yes.
This is like the third take. Sorry, Aaron.
Don't make it worse than it is.
So what else do we have to say about Scottish Kilvin? He is not fucking around with your groveling. He doesn't want to know shit about your false modesty or your crimey ass lamp. Reputation is everything.
He's such a good teacher.
Yeah, he's
He
a real
just,
good Hephaestus, isn't
He
he?
just rips right through everything that Quoth knows he's doing.
Yep.
I assume Patrick Rothfuss had a shop teacher exactly like this because
Aw.
I had two shop teachers exactly like this in completely different ways.
With 7 fingers between them.
No, man, these
4 thumbs.
These were. These are country castmen. They don't have thumbs.
We had a teacher in my undergrad where we would just symbolize him by doing our fingers like this.
Aw,
Which
you
is-
love that teacher. I love you.
Just missing the top 2 fingers of those fingers.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that shop teachers should have to have a finger cut off before they're allowed to teach shop. I'm just saying it's much more effective to be a shop teacher who can show kids in the class what happens when they don't pay enough attention to their tools.
I feel like that should be the tattoo of a shop teacher. Is just like going, all right, I'm going to give up the very tip of my pinky because I'm going to need to tell people how important it is to pay attention.
You're not losing your fucking pinky. Your pinky's not longer than your middle finger.
But what's great
Depends
about
on how you hold your fences.
Yeah. I'm not saying that people don't cut their fucking pinkies off. I'm just saying when I cut my pinky off, it's not going to be my pinky.
the great thing about Kilvin is he's got all his digits, so he keeps Kamar around.
What?
Kamar.
that?
Scar-headed Kamar.
One-eyed Kamar.
Oh, he's just like, hey, other human you.
Yeah.
You're going to vet all of the new students. They're going to get a good look
Oh, I
at what
actually,
could happen.
I just really like picturing Kelvin as black. I'm sorry, that's a weird thing to say, but now I'm totally changed it and I like it a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
He has such a broad leather apron.
He's
Oh, God, Beth, you're just thinking about his beard.
The dichotomy that I love here about Kilvin is that he is absolutely willing to bench his star student when his star student is working too hard. But on the other hand, he does not say a word about, hey, be careful with this bone tar. You guys could really hurt yourselves. This is dangerous stuff. You need to be extra cautious. He's just like, this is what happens when it hits the air. Boom.
Yeah. Watch this reaction.
Done.
It reminded me of my physics and chemistry teacher in high school was just...
Did you have one who did a flame bow across the ceiling? I did in high school.
Yeah,
it was the
like
shit.
we had like an entire week of, okay, usually I don't have students who are interested in science in general or the elements in specific. But this class is very interested in what I'm talking about. So let's play with the elements for a week. And we burned all the elements in different ways.
Nice.
Yeah. Like started with, he's just like, okay, so like you guys know that, things catch fire and you put things out that are on fire with water, but not this shit when it burns.
So Kelvin is obviously a shop/chemistry teacher.
Mm-hmm.
What's Exaldol?
Elxadol.
Is that how you say it?
I read it.
Exla?
Elsha.
Who the
Elsha.
fuck
That's
reads
really
Elsha?
pretty. That's very pretty.
Exla.
People who read things. Yeah. People who've been around Spanish speakers.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, we didn't have them in Pennsylvania.
No,
in the
no,
80s.
it's cool. I actually pulled a description of El Shaddal. I don't know that we got one before, and I liked this one. El Shaddal was charming, soft-spoken, and even a little ridiculous when the mood was on him. But when he taught, his personality strode back and forth between mad prophet and galley slave drummer. Every day in his class, I burned another 3 hours of time and 5 hours worth of energy.
So he is fine painting and philosophy.
He is like the physics teacher who just starts in on the equation and doesn't look back at the class until 2/3 of it are written on the board and everybody has been lost for 25 minutes.
And is also teaching the equation in ballet.
He's having them battle each other. That's our first experience of his classroom is like, go at each other.
And knowing that they're taking bets on it. Like the fact that he knows there's action happening in his classroom is fucking full marks, man.
I have gotten the impression that none of the masters have any real false impressions about the lives of their students, except maybe Hemi.
Yeah, Hemi's got his head up his ass. Hemi and Kvothe have no idea what everyone's getting up to.
I love the fact that El Shaddal's performance of Evil Sorcerer is so over the top that he tucks his hands into the sleeves of his robes, like straight Fu Manchu style.
Is that how you see it?
Yeah. How do you see tucking your hands into the sleeves? Were you thinking like back up, like let the sleeves hang long?
I don't know. I hadn't pictured it at all.
I was thinking that like his hands were cold and he was just putting his hands in his sleeves like they were a muff. Y'all remember muffs?
I do.
Y'all remember muffs from the 1890s, guys?
That's what he's doing, but I pictured it as far more performative. I also think that so far of the masters we've seen, he's the most straightforward college professor in his teaching. He doesn't read eccentric when you're reading his dialogue as a teacher. And we got a little bit of Lauren, again, not in the sense of a master. I wonder if we get him teaching at all.
Put a fucking scene of Lauren teaching in the third book, Patty Rotz. I want to see what someone who's that emotionally blank has to say.
What an interesting teacher he must be.
Right.
I have had teachers like Lauren would teach, too.
So what I noticed in the scene with Kvothe and Lauren is that Lauren reminds Kvothe of a theatrical character, the silent professor, silent doctor, who always shows up and then disaster happens in the next act. And right after we have this scene with Lauren in the archive, we get the escalation of Kvothe and Ambrose's conflict to homicidal heights. Immediately, we get the scene on the horns, followed by the poisoning of Kvothe's business prospects, almost like Lauren was doing exactly what one would expect for his character, or like Kvothe was foreshadowing in the previous scene. So Kvothe is telling this story, mentions that Lauren reminds him of this doctor who signals doom and then tells 3 stories of his doom.
Sure.
It makes you wonder if Kvothe recognizing the doctor as this character happened in the moment or only in retrospect as Kvothe is examining this whole story. Like I said, this section I feel a lot of Kvothe's storyteller embellishments. Or maybe I'm reading them in.
I just kind of only 90% trust anything that I'm being told.
Did you guys get anything from any of the other masters I'm missing? We didn't get a ton of them.
I love class scenes. I'm sorry. They're very fun. I feel like they're really charming in a bunch of different approaches to teaching. And yeah, I like all the teachers thus far. I mean, Hemi's a jerk, obviously.
Yeah, I really like Kilvin. I like his attitude. I really like that Elsa doll.
Elsha?
Elsha.
I really like that Elsha not only knows that Kvothe has been gambling, but knows that Kvothe has done something incredibly stupid and dangerous to make sure that the action on him is going to make him as much money as possible.
And
Elsha may
doesn't
be one of
mention
the
anything
few
about
people. Right. Well, Elsha knows how poor he is.
Does he?
Yeah. He had his little tantrum when he thought he had to pay 3 talents to get into school.
Oh, yeah. Also, Elsha does the, like, I see through you. You are also about to die, and you need to kind of take care of yourself, but I'm not going to call you out in front of all your friends.
Just come over here by the fire. It's warm. So let's move on to some of Kvothe's classmates. Willem once again proves to be Kvothe's true friend. He sees Kvothe is burning out and doesn't just let Kvothe know what he sees. He does something about it.
Yeah, I like this moment, and don't do this to people. It's horrible. Like, don't do things for people without their permission. That's weird. But, like, this is supposed to be a symbol of Willem and Simon and Kelvin all knowing better than Kvothe in this moment.
Let's bear in mind that Kvothe is still a child.
So are Willem and Cinnamon.
Simon? No. Willem and Simon are young adults. The difference between them is not a ton of years, but they're big years.
Totally. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to someone saying, hey, you need to do less. But it is weird to go behind someone's back.
Yes, do not make the decision to intervene in someone's life without their permission, without utmost consideration. Don't.
Even though this is a very loving demonstration of friends and teachers conspiring against the protagonist for his own well-being.
This seems directed at me, guys, and I don't appreciate you bringing it up with me in front of everyone we do the show for.
The thing is, D-Day, nobody needs an intervention for their coffee usage. It's like £1.50 a week. I know it's a little high, but relax, okay?
Just put your mugs away. Stop leaving your mugs all over the place. And why are you using more than 1 mug a day? Why, I sometimes use the same mug 2 or 3 days in a row. Do you want to start paying for the water here?
I respect my coffee.
Let's take this offline.
I'm going to drink it out of a clean cup.
I'm putting it in the parking lot for now.
As much as Willem is a good friend, he's a bad influence when it comes to Scutton. Willem is like me, not going to get drunk before you do. And Willem has Kvothe's back when Denna has him all tongue and teeth and no words. Because Willem is a good bud.
They're both good buds.
They are good buds.
Thank God this isn't Dickens where they just get kicked in the teeth over and over again. Like,
But such flowery language
Quoth-
and such descriptions of agony.
Kvothe gets at least 5 or 6 good buds over this narrative.
So far, maybe Doors of Stone are friends.
Aww. Simon is extremely pleased with the joke he's come up with. More pleased than anybody I know who I make a podcast with.
Look, that Doors of Stone thing was off the dome. I know I stumbled with it. I don't think we have to talk about that one. Look, we'll talk about this in podcast therapy next week. Hey, everyone, next week, tune into Podcast Therapy, our new podcast I just came up with right now. Podcast Therapy. I'm sure nobody already took the URL Podcast Therapy. Podcast Therapy.
I also like how much of like a low-key connected player Simon is. So when he shows up at the door with of the Eolin with Kvothe, and Kvothe is impressive to Diok. Diok immediately assumes Simon brought him. Simon's a baller, low-key baller.
Junior Mayor.
Yeah. He's also a complete sap who weeps his girly little eyes out at sad
love
songs.
that. There's boys who have
Yeah, man.
feelings.
Art makes you cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't look at me while I'm doing it. We all know I'm crying at art.
Sometimes art makes you cry so hard that you tell your friend to never, ever, ever play that song again. Simon reacted to the lay of Sir Severin like I've seen people react to Aronofsky movies.
Oh, you remember?
Don't ever show me Requiem for a Dream again. And then I cut out this little passage to sort of illustrate how Will and Sim see their friend differently but similarly. This is Simon and Will describing. Simon refused to give up. You look more solid, he grimaced. No, you look tight. Tight? Tension forced laughter out of me, leaving me more relaxed. How can someone look tight? Just tight, he shrugged, like a coiled spring. It's the way he's holding himself, Willem said, breaking his usual thoughtful silence. Standing straight, neck unbent, shoulders back. He gestured vaguely to illustrate his points. When he steps, his whole foot treads the ground, not just the ball as if he would run, or the heel as if he would hesitate. He steps solidly down, claiming the piece of ground for his own.
That's some physical actor training right there.
I mean, it feels like me, but I'm not like a coiled spring.
It's good. It's really a sweet way of both of these friends to describe a change in their friend.
Mm-hmm. They both really see him and
notice when stuff is up with him.
Must be nice.
Must be nice.
We notice when stuff is up with you. I notice your goatee right now. You're having a goatee thing.
It's the first time I have ever grown facial hair since I was in my very early 20s for a reason that's not based on a play. And it's been a really, really long time since I've been in a show. And I need to change up my look from guy who had a mohawk to guy who had like the messiest grown out mohawk and needed to do something different. And now I am being a Guido.
I don't think you're allowed to call yourself that.
He's from the East Coast. It's cool. It's his heritage.
I can be as greasy as anyone, Beth.
He's been to the Jersey Shore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've been to the Jersey Shore.
I have absolutely been to the Jersey Shore. I have not gotten an STD at the Jersey Shore.
Moving on, we got a little bit of a look at Sovoy. Sovoy is a good man to have on your side when you're running a gambling ring, and shitty romantic, according to Denna. Cliched roses. If we're wondering if Denna is a courtesan, a sex worker, a commercially available person, something like
we
that.
We haven't really brought up the fact that Denna had what Denna is doing is not defined.
No, we haven't really gotten there yet. No. The encounter with Denna and Sovoy is interesting. He does not seem to behave as if there's any chance of Kvothe being a romantic rival, and I'm not necessarily sure what to take away from that. that might be.
Because he's talking to a literal, obvious child? Do you feel like maybe, I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't be worried about a 15-year-old being a romantic rival, no matter how nice he sung.
He's also, not nobility, not wealthy, not Savoy.
I think you're worried about that when you know damn well you're dating a 16-year-old.
Oh, Rex pointed out, we don't actually know how old Denna is. Like, one of my big things about Denna is, like, we never define if she's really a sex worker. We don't, like, it's just such a weird, nebulous thing in a way that
I always kind of thought that was beside the point. Like,
I always kind of pissed me off. Sorry. It's just like the actual reality is that all of the women in this world have positions, and we see them in a lot of different positions. But a lot of them are implied to sex work is majorly indicated in this world. And we have no idea what Denna is doing. And we've been told by Quoth that she's like kind of older than him when he's 15.
Yeah, we get no real information about Denna's life outside of her time with Quoth and what she shares with him. And it sometimes feels like it's implying she's some sort of sex worker or courtesan or kept woman in some way.
You say implying, but like what else?
Well, I don't think it's really, and this is getting kind of spoilery. I don't think at any point do we get solid factual information that she's engaging in paid companionship. What we get is that she has obligations to individuals that make her uncomfortable, and I think there's a powerful implication that it might be some kind of sex work, but it also might be a red herring implication, something that is drawn out of us, but is textually completely wrong.
It's a mere shit.
Well,
Dug.
we can get to that
You think
later.
the Amir are beyond?
This is not the appropriate time
I'm
to
just
talk
saying.
about that.
No, we're getting
But-
way off course here.
But I am saying you're right if that. But otherwise, it's like there's
I've been
a really
looking
strong.
for it much more closely on this read through.
When I first listened through, I was constantly struck by how Denna is never defined in what Denna is doing, but the implication of Denna being basically an escort is really strong the entire time.
Yeah, so and I got that same impression. But I've become suspicious of the impressions that I come away with from this text, because I think there is a lot of misdirection in the way the story is told. I think there's a lot of things that are implied in order to heighten the surprise when the reveal happens. Which is a big digression from Mr. Savoy, which is fine because I didn't really have a lot to say about him.
Well, we've been
Denna's fascinating, though,
chomping
right?
at the bit to talk about Denna. Soyville, Soyfoy.
knock out these other ones first. Like, we got to talk about Fenton. I don't know why we got to talk about Fenton.
Why
we
do we
already
gotta talk about Fenton?
Fenton sucks.
Fenton did real well in that thing. He knows when to press his advantage.
Yeah.
And doesn't like to be stood up for corners. But that's all there is about Fenton. I also already said my thing about Kamar. I think Kamar functions exclusively as a personification of the risk of the weird magic that they get into at the Arcanum. Both within the text and diegetically in Kilvin keeping him employed. Manet, we got a little bit more of a look at. He is a little bit larger than his role as a slacker perpetual student. He actually turns out to be a really solid mentor for Quoth. And Quoth compares him to Ben in this, in terms of how he goes about being a mentor. And I think that speaks to the culture of the Arcanum that we're getting a little bit more of a look at. Like, this is how the Arcanum teaches you how to teach.
He also says Manet is like better than a Greek chorus because he keeps simplifying
Yeah, that's a great line.
what Kilvin is saying when he's warning them about the giant death bomb that they
Right.
put in the middle of the fishery. And
That shit shouldn't go on a table. That shit goes on the floor.
it cracked me up because I love all the theater references, and Patty Rotz is obviously a theater kid. You can't not. But there's this adorable moment where Quoth says, "Oh, you're better than a Greek chorus. Like, you're better than a chorus."
Yeah, he wouldn't know what Greek is.
Wouldn't mean anything.
Be a Modegan, of course. And actually, now that we're on Manet, I want to take just a moment. This is the first episode that we're releasing after having launched. So not long ago, I proofed all of our previous episodes and heard myself make a couple of horrendous mistakes, one of which was in discussing Mammoth. I swore a lot.
That's a different podcast, but we could do it.
It's called the Fuck You Buddy podcast. In discussing Manet, I said that he reminded me of the character in Real Genius that was played by Stephen Wright, and that character was not at all played by Stephen Wright. I was conflating him with dude on the couch.
Oh my God,
in
listeners,
Half-Baked.
you have to understand he's been plaguing me with this need. He wanted me to edit it into that episode so that you would know this for sure.
I asked you once, just once.
I heard about it at least once after that.
It's just lucky that you hadn't seen Real Genius and we watched it after recording that episode. Otherwise, I would not have known about my grievous error.
Still haven't seen it. Still embarrassed for the both of you.
Some of us lived through the 90s. All of us, all three of us lived through the 90s. It's
true.
just dumb luck you didn't see that
If
one.
you can call it living, it's not dumb luck. I was punished for a lot of the 90s.
You mentioned Viari, the walking pile of weapons. I liked seeing Viari because he was another glimpse for Kvothe of what post-Arcanum life can be like. We've really only seen Ben as an example of what somebody does outside the walls of Wizard U. And of what's at the other side of a Gilder is life of
Conan the Librarian.
chatting with your donkeys until you meet a lady with a brewery to settle down with.
Sounds pretty solid.
Well,
I'd pay for that.
I don't know that the lifestyle justifies
Donkeys and a
the
lady with
effort.
a brewery?
Yeah,
That
that's
sounds
upper middle
great.
class as fuck.
Yeah. I'm so in for donkeys and a lady
Yeah,
with a
you
brewery.
can buy your own insurance then.
That guy went to a prestigious university, became petite bourgeoisie, and he's coming out the other side with
A brewery, man. Not only are you making money
hot
out of
young
nothing,
wife,
you're not
a
paying for
brewery,
beer.
and two cute donkeys.
all I'm saying is that
Well,
you
he
can
had
get
those donkeys.
You can get that life with 2 years of trade school.
Oh, that's fair.
Okay, well then let's have a 3-year plan, guys.
And there's no risk of going crazy. Oh, and who is Puppet?
I only caught it this time because I was like, I don't care at all the first time through. And then later I was like, oh, that's that guy I know about. And I'm like, cool. Thank you for the foreshadowing.
I love that they he drops in the sentence like, why do you keep talking about Puppet? I'm going crazy. I need to know who this Puppet is. And we're like, who? Has he been mentioned?
Yeah, what is Puppet?
That
Yeah, is he
that
one of
is
the
past
Ents?
this chunk. He has yet to express that much interest in Puppet.
Who is Puppet?
Oh, it's the guy in the stacks.
That's all we know about
Jesus
Puppet is
fuck.
who is Puppet.
Yeah.
They
Do
keep
you
talking.
not remember reading the books the first time at all anymore?
No, I do. But I mean, I've been like, I read my parts a lot. Like that's what I can't be accessing old memory.
ADHD, I cannot be accessing old memory.
Not unless you tell me that I should be looking for that shit first.
You gotta prep me for old memory. It takes a long time for me to access those files, and then I can only access them for a while.
Yeah, and don't move around while I do it. Please.
All that was in this chunk was one line of Will or Simon saying to Quoth, "Have you been hanging out with Puppet?" And Quoth saying, "Who the fuck is Puppet? You guys keep talking about Puppet. What the fuck?" And that's all. That's us too. Mm-hmm. So let's go over the river. On the other side of the river are Stanchion and Diok.
Can I say this is the first time Stanchion actually rung home for his literal name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's such a straightforwardly great name for someone in Stanchion's role.
Yeah.
To be named literally Stanchion.
Yeah, it's a playa name.
It's so cute. I like it a lot.
But wouldn't Diok really be Stanchion? Because you're next to a stanchion when you're standing in line.
Sure.
So wouldn't the doorman be called Stanchion?
In a way, but stanchion guides you to the stage.
A stanchion is the thing that divides you
Right.
between certain people and other people. I didn't catch it at all the first time, and I thought it was super charming. Stanchion is the guy who brings them up on stage, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That he's the divider. That's what a stanchion does. It divides certain people from other people.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is about the line out front. That's where
and calling him
stanchions are.
Velvet Rope would be just fucking terrible.
Velvet Rope.
Yeah, this is Door and Velvet Rope.
We're gonna do the
This is Wet Towel.
we'll do the Sigildry alphabet, and we'll find out that Diok just means rope. Or soft rope.
Yeah, door handle.
We got descriptions of these two. Stanchion had a medium build and was handsomely dressed in deep green and black. He had a round bearded face and a slight paunch that was probably only noticeable because he was sitting. I love that Stanchion is absolutely only ever going to give out talent pipes to somebody who really deserves it. Mm-hmm. But he is also going to do his goddamnedest to make sure that Kvothe doesn't go on stage singing a song that he can't sing and fail to get his talent pipes. He is on the performer's side. He wants to give out those talent pipes.
He also gave the warning, though, that this is a fucking venue and you know this is supposed to be a two-person thing. And what's your plan for that? And Kvothe has a plan for that. And that's why he gets to be a person who goes on stage tonight. Because they're...
But he still asks him to reconsider. Like, he puts up extra effort.
Do you
There's
know?
the difference between a soft barrier and a hard barrier for getting on stage for shows like that. And that was a soft barrier, almost certainly just because of the way that Kvothe carried himself.
Yeah, that is absolutely Stanchion's shtick. He wants to foster creative excellence on his stage, and so he makes that barrier to those talent pipes nice and high. But boy, is he happy giving them out.
Yeah, and Kvothe doesn't have to really, stretch that much to get one. He's a Damaroo. Like, he is his talent pipes. He has to get this badge. Like, he has to get the degree. He needs the key to leveling up, but like he already has enough experience for that shit.
He is Damaroo, but he also is the mystical master of music. So that's...
Well, now he is.
Now he is.
But like, I think even without his parents dying, he could have gotten his talent pipes there.
Probably right. The description of Diok, as we approached the Aeolian, the doorman tugged at the front of his wide-brimmed hat and made a nodding bow. He was at least 6.5 feet tall, deeply tanned, and muscular. Which is like as generic bouncer as you could possibly get. Except maybe the hat. I don't see a lot of wide-brimmed hat bouncers, but times have changed. Loved Diok. Just the bouncer owns the place is such a great little turn. And both him and Stanchion watching their reaction to full performative Kvothe was pretty great because they both kind of have the same reaction. They're both like, initially, this kid is arrogant and full of shit and bluster, and give him like just 2 more seconds glance and like, this kid is something else. Let's see what this is about. And I really enjoyed his bizarre protectiveness of Kvothe when it comes to Denna. And that really kind of deepens the mystery of Denna. His description of...
I would say that deepens the mystery of Diok. Like, who are we supposed to be focusing on here?
Mm-hmm. The burly guy with the forearms made of snakes, Beth.
The guy who owns the joint.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The fluidity of his description of what was at risk with Denna was striking. Like, he's not like, hey, this is a woman who might break your heart. He's like, this is a woman who will break your heart and shatter your soul and scatter its pieces across the 4 corners of the earth and then erase your name from history. And maybe you don't want to get involved with this she-devil who is incredible. It's not her fault. She doesn't know.
Yeah, snake made a fire in your pocket. I went over that.
It's telling of the protectiveness, the sort of like paternalistic relationship that Diok develops with Kvothe very quickly, and also the potency of whatever the hell is going on with Denna. It's got to be more than just like she's pretty and plays hard to get. And Count Threep is sort of like the
Sir Alec Guinness, if you will.
He's the concept of patronage embodied. Patronage is always avenue of apology for wealth and privilege.
A series of wives. Patronage is a series of wives.
The institution of patronage is meant to justify the accumulation of wealth.
I think it also justifies the fact that a lot of societies don't foster their own artists. They're just like, well, some people will become so exorbitantly wealthy enough that, you know, they'll want more interesting things to happen, so they'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. They'll probably take care of the fucking poor on the highways, too. Fuck it.
And that relationship between wealth and privilege and patronage is highlighted in the passage about etiquette. Mm-hmm. That's what that's all about, rather than art being something that we sustain as a community. It becomes something that is at the mercy of the whims of bizarrely blinded, privileged few who often don't even recognize their privilege. They can think things like, oh, etiquette is just silly games, rather than etiquette is the thing that gets me from having my hand cut off. And on the other side of things is Anchor. I love Anchor because he is a reflection of Kvothe's oppositional defiant disorder.
Aww.
Oh man, that is not oppositional defiant disorder.
No, it's not. That's not like a main driver of Kvothe, but we see bits of it. Kvothe is
he's oppositional.
He is oppositional.
He's cantankerous, but like that, he doesn't have a disorder.
But Anchor does. Anchor is the isolation of Kvothe's defiance, and like I've known dive bar owners like Anchor. I've known a bunch of dive bar owners and coffee shop owners like Anchor. You tell me not to hire that guy. That guy is my head fucking chef. Fuck you.
Oh, that's how you get to cook in a bar. Guys, we should have a barky shop.
I hadn't pictured how you were picturing Anchor yet, but now I see your Anchor clearly.
No, you don't tell Anchor what to do in Anchor's bar. Fuck you. Is your name Anchors? This is Anchors. I am Anchors.
I didn't buy Anchor's bar not to be Anchors who runs this goddamn bar. Who the fuck are you? Ambrose. You sound like a fucking flower. Get the fuck out of here.
Man, that is a great segue because next on my list, motherfucking Ambrose.
Oh, I know you're supposed to hate Ambrose, but I hate Ambrose so fucking much.
So what we learned in this section about Ambrose is that Ambrose isn't going to stop. He is unrelenting.
I was a fool. That was like, you don't, where Quoth comments on his own life, it's always just like foreshadowing. And there's that one section where he's talking, I think it's in that chapter both Noah and Rex and I tried to skip, where, here it is. There's a difference, you see. In Tarbine, I learned real fear. I feared hunger, pneumonia, guards with hobnail boots, older boys with bottle glass knives. Confronting Ambrose required no real bravery on my part. I simply couldn't muster any fear of him. I saw him as a puffed-up clown. I thought he was harmless. I was a fool.
Yeah, money is its own power.
Yeah. The thing that struck me in this is that like Ambrose keeps failing in his revenge. He breaks Quoth's string, and now Quoth is the god of rock and roll. He takes Quoth on the horns.
And all the teachers are like, fucking stop bothering us.
Yes, he not only gets thrown out, he invents the small penis defense.
Wait, I'm going to need you to put more words to that. What do you mean?
There's a concept in libel law called the small penis defense, which is where you can write incredibly unflattering things about a fictional character that is meant to resemble a real person in every way, and then you describe them as having a 1-inch penis. And then if they take you to court to say you libeled them, the lawyer says, "Sir, do you have a 1-inch penis? Then clearly this character is not you."
I see.
the small penis defense.
That's exactly it. Because they're like, "Are you a jackass?
Yeah.
Do you have?
Do you fizzle your bizzle?
Yeah, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah.
and then after failing in the horns, he gets this savage takedown letter plastered all over town.
Which is from Hemi about what, an apology? That's not enough. Great. Well, not just an apology, a letter, and a public letter.
Even his pressure campaign to get Quoth kicked out of the inn ends him up at Anchors, which in the end is where Quoth needs to be, according to Quoth.
He feels way more at home there.
The other thing I picked up about Ambrose in this section is how much his noble arrogance gets in his own way. In the trading of admissions slots, anybody else who had that kind of like vicious, contentious relationship with one of their peers wouldn't even have approached Quoth to try and buy his slot. They just, fuck you. I'm not going to fuck with that guy. I'm out. Ambrose is his perspective is so skewed by his own wealth and status that he feels there is no way I can enter this public financial transaction with this speck of a human and not come out on top. There are zero avenues for Quoth to humiliate me, ruin me in any way. I have all the money in the world, and noble as fuck, this guy is a gypsy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Nope. Straight to public humiliation.
And then?
And then, yes, per Bass request, all the ladies.
All right, you guys.
Fun killer.
We're 3 hours and 5 minutes into this recording session. I feel like we should call it.
I've had to pee for like 2.5 hours.
I know.
Come on, some of that was drone time.
Yeah, a bunch of that was drone time.
Yeah, go ahead and save it. We'll do
There's
you
at
into
least
production.
10 minutes of drone time.
We'll see you back here in a second.
So it seems like you've left out all of the characters with a particular feature.
I have not left them out. How could I ignore Bast's request, I was just saving the interesting bit for last. So let's go ahead and start with the couple of characters that we run into briefly, but don't get too terrible much characterization in this section. There's Mola, who we see right at the end, and Mola is still a consummate professional medical student person, but has now graduated. Yay, Mola.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sorry about your name, Mola.
And then following the pattern, we meet Fela.
Fela, we've already met.
We've already met. We saw her again, and D-Day already covered what I was going to say. Thanks, bud.
I do such a comprehensive job. I can't possibly just be comprehensive at my job.
You did it in my section.
My job transcends all sections. Wait till you see what happens when we get to Beth's section.
So we've got Auri.
Ari.
Auri is an interesting female in the section. She's the only one that isn't, to some degree, characterized as an object of Kvothe's desire or the desire of Kvothe. There is no romantic, erotic dynamic between the two of them, which is maybe no surprise since she is skin and bones and crazy as nuts.
Hey, that's attractive to many. If you're out there, hi, Devin.
Auri to me is serves a similar function so far as Kamar, a personification of the risk that students are taking undertaking magic. Of course, she'll probably grow to a hell of a lot more if she's the kind of person that gives out keys to the moon. But for now, she is a sign of what can happen to your poor brain grapes if you go naming too many things.
Also, her hair is super floaty. It's just floating around her.
Yeah.
Floating everywhere around her.
It's a real delirium hairdo.
It really is like delirium.
Do you think it's filled with goldfish? I think it's filled with goldfish.
And balloons.
It's made of balloons, Beth. Obviously, it's balloons.
It's only metaphorically made of balloons and full of goldfish.
I don't think you're reading as deeply as Beth and I are reading. To be fair, you haven't read The Maze of Things Underwater yet, so
I read that chapter like 4 times at least. I'm positive the word balloons doesn't appear.
We haven't read the novella.
I have not read the
You
novella.
don't even know
I'll get
about
to
the
that.
giant gear yet.
it's not just giant, it's golden.
Ooh.
Is it golden? I thought it was just heavy.
It's golden in my mind.
I thought it was big and heavy. Do you remember when you brought home that giant gear and I was like, what? It was like in the middle of me reading that, and I'm like, what is the use of this giant gear? Oh, D-Day has a use for this giant gear.
Did you Lathe of Heaven D-Day bringing home a gear?
It's gigantic.
Nobody ever means to Lathe of Heaven, except for that jerk Shrink. Fuck that guy.
I have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
Have you not read Lathe of Heaven?
Neither have I.
I didn't know it was a
Neither
book.
of you?
No.
Oh, it's Ursula Le Guin. It's fantastic.
I do love Ursula Le Guin.
I
mean,
love
she's read
some of
so
Ursula
many
Le
books. I can't possibly know which books are worth reading.
Well, then, let's continue on.
I read the good ones, though,
Let's
except
talk
for Lathe of Heaven.
except for Lathe of Heaven. Might even be a...
Join us on our next podcast, Except for Lathe of Heaven.
where we read no Ursula Le Guin books.
But she does
except
send
for
us
Lathe of
takedown
Heaven.
requests.
So let's move on to Devi.
I like Devi. I like Devi the way people like Bast.
Yeah, Devi is a really compelling character because she 100% has her shit together. Like, not even in a backpack. She's got it in a designated corner of her room, alphabetized, color-coded.
Devi and Ari, is that how you say your name?
Who knows?
Are literally opposites. They
Yes.
both studied at the university.
Mm-hmm.
And Ari disappeared into the Underthing and is crazy. And they're both at least kind of said to be around 20.
They're the like the two variations of how you drop out from the university. You get the magic overcomes your mind, or your mind overcomes the magic, and you start doing things you ain't supposed to.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never put that together before.
I wouldn't say it's the two ways that you can leave Wizard University, but they're the two options Kvothe has.
They're both dropout options.
Yeah, they're the like dramatic options. I mean, you can not cut it and fail.
Sure.
I mean,
or he could run out of money and not be able to pay for next semester, but that's not
right.
Like
he could also be Manet, or that guy who's just like pirate librarian.
Yeah, and those are the ways you succeed at the university.
Succeed.
The ways you blow the fuck up is to either blow up your brain or blow up your rep.
And they keep showing us examples of that.
Mm-hmm. She's the consequence of making bullseye lanterns. She is the inherent criminality of magic.
Of power.
Of power, sure, but I think of magic in particular because what we see from her is she's a very classic gangster archetype. She's the loan shark, but she's not going to ever have to break any knees because she's got 3 drops of your blood. So it's the subtle, mysterious power of magic as opposed to the extremely straightforward power of a table leg to the patella.
Yeah, but you still got to swing that leg.
Yeah,
you got to hit just underneath the midpoint of it.
But anybody can swing a table leg and a kneecap.
Man, people can't catch keys that I throw them from 5 feet away.
She's crafty, and there's a subtlety to her gangsterness, her crimes that is pretty standout. She's manages to be in complete control, to have the control that a criminal has, and at no point seems sinister. Like, Devi doesn't read as a villain, even though ostensibly what she's doing is bad behavior.
It's a different moral quandary if you're living inside a capital. Like, she needs to pay to live and to pay to survive somehow. And there's a lot of things she can do. And maybe all of them in one way or another are gray market all the way to nefarious. But, you know, she's a moneylender. She is lending money, and she is backing it up with some sort of backsy-upsy thing. Anyone wittier than I am right now?
With blood magic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, blood collateral.
The other thing going on in the scenes with Devi is that she is overtly sexually desirous of Kvothe. And Kvothe is...
See,
Are you sure?
You say this, and I'm a little bit like...
Give me the book. Give me the book.
I feel like often what the women who are so egregiously hitting on Kvothe are doing are being intimidating towards a boy who has no idea how to handle sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
So you were thinking that these passes are entirely for control?
I think
Kvothe in Devi's case.
I'm sure. I mean, and maybe Kvothe is, as I believe you mentioned before, a snack. But even if Devi were to fuck Kvothe because she wants to have a good time, she's also doing that to have an upper hand on Kvothe.
Okay, fair point. Nonetheless,
just because a bookie wants to play poker with you doesn't mean he likes you. And just because I say he doesn't mean he's not a she.
Yeah, and I was not saying that I think that Devi swoons for Kvothe on first sight. What she does is aggressively sexually flirt with him. And what Kvothe does is fail to grasp what's going on. This entire section in both described scenes and in the perception of Will and Sim is largely about the fact that Kvothe is a child and has no perception whatsoever of people's romantic or sexual intentions, except for Denna. Do y'all have any other thoughts about Devi that we can edit back in after long silences?
I think we're probably good. I actually think we covered Devi fairly well.
All right. Well, then let's move on to somebody that we'll never cover completely, which is our girl Denna, or Diane, or Danae,
or Diane,
or whoever she's calling herself today.
As an incredibly attractive woman who has had many dozens of names, I don't think it really matters which of her names we call her. We could probably just call her D or Denna.
I thought you were talking about yourself. As an incredibly attractive woman who has many names, I identify with Denna.
Obviously. You think Damien's my birth name? Jesus, fuck. Can you imagine?
To tell the listeners your real name.
They can't find me on the internet. I have a VPN.
So this is finally the reveal of Denna. This is this plus the Arcanum have been Kvothe's entire motivation for the first half of the book. And here she is. And she doesn't remember who Kvothe is, or is at least happy to yes and along with him during their first meeting until he's not even sure that she remembers.
He's also playing the same game. He is not acting like he remembers her from that wagon ride either.
Yeah, they're playing along with each other. I think we can pin the impetus on this misunderstanding on Kvothe's utter awkwardness.
Yeah.
Potato boy. I love how, again, aggressive and erotic the flirtation is in their fake first encounter, their moment in the Aeolin, and Denna being perceptive and apparently actually interested in Kvothe understands how utterly this fails to land, and all of the next couple of scenes with her are much more juvenile and romantic in terms of their tone of flirtation.
So you feel like she tones it down?
I think she dials it way back, and I think by the end of this section, she is probably pretty irritated that he hasn't tried to kiss her yet. Assuming that...
I really don't think that's a thing that women experience, is the irritation of not having been kissed yet.
I don't know. I don't play a passive role in my relationship.
I would appreciate if no one else did either.
I strongly suspect that if you had spent 4 intense romantic nights with somebody having the deepest connection that two humans can without touching one another, and you've been sending incredibly obvious signals, outright blatant flirtation, and this kid
I would be pleasantly surprised to be kissed after 4 days, yes.
I think you are overestimating the reality of trying to flirt with 15-year-old boys. Like, you're not...
Oh, I'm not saying that her expectations were realistic, but I'm sure it's frustrating.
I've been to summer camp.
Especially such a precocious kid. I mean, this is a kid who's batting it out of the park in so many different fields, but is just completely oblivious to the reality of mutual desire.
I find that character flaw of Kvothe's very frustrating, since he's so often so keenly aware of what is happening emotionally around him, to be completely oblivious to all of the hot women who are just throwing themselves at him.
This is Kvothe's naivete. This is not just 15-year-old Kvothe. This is isolated Kvothe. And Denna, on the other hand, is this, from what we seem to understand, intensely worldly individual, a person who can travel safely as a young solo female in this world and assume different identities, encounter and escape from danger.
Can we talk about this for a moment?
Yeah.
Like, is she a sex worker? Like, what is going on that we have this person that is supposed to be like a year older than Quoth-ish? Like, I know we never have it like tamped down, but Quoth says she's a bit older than him. And so in his mind, and what she does is show up on the arms of dudes and disappears on the arms of dudes. And we live in a world where obviously sex workers, whores, concubines, whatever the fuck are a thing. But no one is like, hey, Denna's a sex worker and she's fucking these dudes.
So I don't think we're certainly not going to clear that up by the end of book 2.
I don't know if we clear that up at all.
No.
I don't know if Kvothe ever is able to penetrate the fog of what Denna does in those years when she comes and goes.
God, I'm hoping by book 3 we get an understanding of who Denna is that is considerably deeper than what we're presented with. And I know where you get the impression that Denna is an escort or whatever. I came away with that too for my first read through, but I have a sneaking suspicion that is misdirection. And so on this read through, I'm being very attentive to what actual information we get about Denna and what we're left with because of Kvothe's projections, concerns, apprehensions. And I want to really parse those two because I think we come away from book 2 knowing less about Denna than we feel we know about Denna.
Yes.
Maybe.
And the projection of Denna's role is very loud.
Yes.
And it never is addressed, at least in the first 2 books.
No, we get Kvothe in the interlude preceding, well, first meeting Devi and Auri to completely misdirect us, announcing the arrival of the woman.
And I want to be clear. I have no problem with Denna being a sex worker. What I kind of have a problem with is, and I didn't have a problem with it in the first read through at all. What I kind of have a problem with is the dangling of this implication without ever addressing it. That I find frustrating. Hopefully in the third book, it would mean a lot to me if we just addressed whether or not she's like, is there a role for women in this world that's just being pretty arm candy and totally normal ladies get paid to do that? Or has this woman been at least appearing to be a quite young sex worker the entire time we've seen her, other than on the wagon ride?
I think the whole thing is it would be nice to have that specificity, and I would very much like to know how the world that they're in treats that subject.
Yes.
But I think more to the point is that as free of a spirit as Denna seems, and as much agency as she has as a character, she is still beholden to men with power.
And I like that, actually, really implicitly. I want to say, like, gender roles in this book have a lot of stuff going on. And I appreciate that if we're putting it in a historical context, that there are some women who are less beholden to men than others, but that the actual reality is the vast majority of women are either directly beholden to men or doing everything in their entire lives to not be beholden to men.
So I think there are a lot of implied facts about Denna and a lot of Kvothe provided facts about Denna that we have to be really dubious of. One of which is her age. I don't believe we have Denna giving her age.
I think the only factual piece of information we have about Denna is that her nose is kind of crooked. I believe Basque. She has perfect ears and her nose is kind of crooked.
And speaking of perfect ears, I want to hit on that because that's Bast's description of Denna. And then when Kvothe and Denna are speaking in the Aeolian, Denna comments that this incredibly hard piece of music is something that she's only heard twice. Cops to having heard the performers rehearse it a couple of times on her second hearing, but she still knows all the lyrics, knows the incredibly complicated harmony. And then Kvothe comments that she's got an incredible ear, to which Denna replies that he might be the first person to tell her that while actually looking at her ears. And that's such a strange through line, because Bast is clearly talking about her physical ears. He is fascinated by the physical feature of this mortal person who is...
Ears are really sexy, I'm not going to lie.
We've seen Bast fixating on mortal women before, and there's a kind of a outsider's purity to it. You wouldn't expect a human person without like a specific ear kink to say she had perfect ears. But for Bast, all of these mortal women are this fascinating novelty, and he's noticing the details.
You said ear kink, and I just pictured ears with tiny, like, stiletto heels, like, on them.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. For some reason, foot fetish is immediately where kink goes. So ear kink is just, like, ears with tiny little stiletto heels.
That's not what it is, but it's also not for this podcast.
No, we can talk about ear shibari. I mean, you have to get very, very small gauge rope. So Bast is talking about her ears. Kvothe is talking about ear in the figurative sense, about one's relationship to music.
One's ability to hear.
And retain and repeat. He's blown away by this feat that she's performed for him, and is also apparently looking at her ear.
Because her ears are hot.
And then Denna makes the comment that she's heard that before, but not while someone is looking at her ear, which is clearly a reference to somebody sexualizing her body.
Right.
But it's
he's
also
also just looking at her face. Like, he's not necessarily staring at her ear. How could you really tell?
Can you not tell when someone is looking you in the eyes or when someone's looking at your ear?
Why would I be looking at their eyes? Their mouth is what's talking about.
Fair point. So what do you guys think of Denna on the second read through? Like, personally, is this someone that you, either the first time through or the second time or whatever time through, like, did you feel drawn towards her? Did you feel drawn towards their relationship?
Yes, very much so. I am not at all surprised all of the times where she's not where she's supposed to be. That's real easy suspense to build into something. And I also have been swayed by Rex's persistent opinion that she's more than she seems. And she certainly seems to be the honeypot that you would use to control Kvothe, were you a cabal of people who will do anything at all that you possibly can do to save the world.
I think it's interesting, her, like, flitting in and out of his world really bothered me. I liked their romance. Let me be clear. I found it super cute. I found Kvothe's sort of bashfulness and her just unrelenting intelligence, and her being kind of the only person who could put Kvothe off his own feet, because he's so
almost the only person. Devi's got that too.
Yeah. So
there's a couple Princess Leia's in this.
Yeah. Also, several masters can sometimes put him off his feet.
Sure.
But, like, I quite liked their romance, and I felt jerked around by her, like, being there and then being gone, and that being, like, a motivating factor. On the second read through, I feel irritated at her for behaving that way. Like, I understand, like, there's potentially bigger things at play. Obviously, there are bigger things at play. She's not doing this just to jerk him around. There's something else going on. But when I read it the second time, I'm like, why are you doing this? Stop it. Like,
so what's changed for me between first and second is the first time, as her character was being revealed, fell for her line. Her appearance through the first book was, for all her like agency and intelligence and power, it was a very damseled character, especially as we progress into the next half.
Yeah, we're getting more towards damsel.
Yeah, and early in the second book too.
Although it would be very straightforward that she's never actually excited when he shows up to help her.
No,
which is one of that I find to be a very redeeming characteristic about her.
But I took her reported experience at face value. This read through, I'm more dubious of what she's presenting to Kvothe or what Kvothe is presenting to us.
Yeah.
More the former than the latter. But I definitely get the feeling that there's going to be a reveal in book 3 about Denna that will recontextualize almost every scene with her.
Oh, man.
But I could be guessing wrong.
Be that good of a writer, please. We need some wins.
Hold on. Chekhov's Denna?
No. Unfortunately, no. But you keep swinging for those fences.
I will keep swinging Chekhov's bat at Chekhov's pitch every time.
I think that wraps up the characters.
That is everybody we've met who had any sort of significance.
Yeah, characters.